Hello, this is Courtney with Regular Reader Reviews. I thought I would give the video review another try and see how it goes. Today I'm going to talk about the book I most recently finished, which would be Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I came into the book, I feel, a little bit later than others did. I had discovered it through some online videos, and the premise of the book sounded really cool. Virtual reality, finding an Easter egg in a video game for this massive prize. I thought it sounded really cool. So I went out and bought it, but I did not read it for a while. I had a stack of books to get through at the time, and I kept putting it off, but I was just so excited to read it. I thought it was just going to be this paradise for nerds. And so I kept anticipating it, looking forward to it. Then I saw the Great American Reads Challenge, which had that book on the list, and so I thought, okay, maybe this book really will be something good. I finally sat down and I finally read it, and well, it didn't quite meet my expectations, unfortunately. I guess maybe I held it up on too high of a pedestal, but it just, I don't know, it was kind of more of a disappointment really than anything else. Overall though, I did give it a rating of 3 stars out of 5. After reading more about it though, I was tempted to give it 2 stars. A lot of people have a lot of problems with this book, and reading more about those problems and even stuff about the author itself, it made me want to lower my rating. However, I decided that when I first finished the book without any outside opinions or influences, I had thought it was just okay, so I gave it 3 stars, and so that's where I'm going to keep it. Today, I guess I will just talk about some of the things that I was thinking as I was reading the book. 2 things before I get started. First of all, I'm not going to get into too nitty-gritty details, but there probably will be a few spoilers in there, so just spoiler warning, I guess. And also, I was not a child of the 80s, and there is a lot of 80s nostalgia and references in there, so I would say that that didn't really have a grip on me. I was more of a kid of like the late 90s, early 2000s, so the 80s nostalgia doesn't have any sway over how I felt ultimately about the book. Alright, let's begin. So, what we would consider to be the prologue in this book, it's written mostly about the introduction to the Easter egg, what it is, how it came about. It talks about the creator of this virtual reality game called the Oasis and its creator, Halliday. And Halliday has recently died and left a massive fortune. He hid an Easter egg in his Oasis game, and he said to the first person who can find the 3 keys and unlock the 3 gates will win the Easter egg and get my fortune. And it's this video will instead of like a handwritten one or anything like that. And it goes through all these little details to the point where Ernest Cline felt it was necessary to put footnotes in the prologue, which I found to be a little annoying and probably unnecessary. It just gives like little details like, now Halliday looks like he did in his 8th grade photograph. Or there was one in particular that stood out in my mind, which was they're in this funeral parlor from this movie from the 80s, and it says in the footnote that there are certain celebrities and extras from that movie sitting in the pews mourning over Halliday, and I thought, is this really necessary? But the writing in this book is, it's kind of written like how maybe a teenager would talk, how a teenager would think, and I can swallow that a little bit. But it isn't just any kind of teenager, oh no, it is a pretentious one. And if you guys have seen any of my other blogs, I did one about The Faults in Our Stars and how I just could not stand how pretentious everybody was. This is kind of along the same lines. The main character's name is Wade, and he is almost 18 years old, and he has this idea that he has everything figured out. He knows how everything in life is. he goes on this rant about what he calls our situation or the human condition. And he says something along the lines of, I wish people had just told me all this from the start instead of me having to find it out for myself. And he goes into this rant about how religion is all about, just fairy tales, and here's how life really is, here is how life really works, and in the end, we're all just gonna die and nothing is going to happen to you. Get over it. I'm not a stranger to people mocking people of faith or saying that it's total garbage or whatever, but the way that it's written, it is so pretentious and there's really nothing to back it up, to the point where his rant holds no weight, it holds no water, and it was just more annoying to get through. And that was one of the first signs, aside from the footnotes and the prologue, that I started to wonder, is this book really going to be more of a disappointment? Sure hope not. And the thing is, I could almost let Wade slide a little bit, because I remember being a teenager. I'm sure that there were times when I thought I had everything figured out and all these other people have no idea what's really going on, what life is really like. I'm sure I was exactly like that. That being said, though, the way Wade treats everybody, he just belittles everybody so much unless they are at the point where he feels like they are on his level of knowledge about Halliday, have the same knowledge of the 80s pop culture as he does. And I'm sorry, not everybody's like that. He's really unlikable, and I could not get behind the hero of this story. He was really overpowered. He knew so much, and I'll touch on that in a moment. He was just so cocky about everything, and I couldn't get behind him, and it doesn't seem like he ever learns anything at all in the end. There's this one point at the beginning of the book, it feels very much like a wish fulfillment. There's this other character that goes by IROC in the Oasis, and he's talking about this new game or whatever that he's discovered, and he thinks he's got this new clue about Halliday, and Wade just, nails him into the ground. He's like, oh, you're just now discovering that, and he lists off all these facts about this game. It feels really just like wish fulfillment of, don't you wish you could be this smart, and be able to put other wannabe posers in their place. So I feel like maybe that's just how this book is. It's just wish fulfillment, the book for nerds, and although I don't know any nerds that really would want to be quite like Wade. This book really goes out of its way to show just how hard Wade has worked at becoming a gunter. He has dedicated a lot of time to being able to unlock the first clue to the first key, which takes about 5 years from the day that Halliday dies up until the point when Wade finds the first key. He has learned all that he could about the pop culture of the 80s, and some of this stuff actually goes to before the 80s, like it mentions Star Trek, the original, and then he goes through all the other Star Treks, which, did not start in the 80s. But he lists off all these movies, all these television shows, record albums, and then he even says that he's gone and mastered all these video games. He has learned everything that he could possibly learn about Halliday, and it really pushes my suspense of disbelief to the point where I really don't think I could actually buy into what Wade has done. Over the course of 5 years, he has covered over 10 years worth of pop culture content, to the point where he has it all memorized and can recite it just like that, which I don't know. I mean, I remember as a kid, I would binge watch stuff. I remember trying to just binge watch Bleach, and that took forever, and I could not memorize all that. But, maybe this kid has a photographic memory. Maybe he's just really good at memorizing because he's done it for 5 years. I don't know. But just to be able to cover over 10 years worth of content in 5 years, and being able to master and memorize it all, I don't know if that would actually fly. Oh, and on top of that, he's also going to school and doing pretty good in school, so trying to, be a dedicated gunter and memorize and master all these things and being a good student, I mean, hats off to you if you can actually do that, but I don't know. One thing that I think Ernest Cline really did well with would be the world building. When he first talks about how reality is, how it's just gone to pot, and how everyone's basically living on these stacked trailers. I think that was really well done. What he did even better, I think, was the Oasis. His design of it, his world building with that, I think that was really good. I thought it was really cool how he did the whole idea of school, like how teachers could take students to the time of the pharaohs and see it in its height and its glory, and then the next day he said, oh, and we're going to be going and seeing the archaeological dig of the tombs. And I thought, now there's a really cool idea. I might even actually want to teach if I could do that with my students. But it was just really neat seeing what he was able to do with the Oasis. It brought back some good memories for me from when I was in middle school playing RuneScape, if is that even still a thing anymore? But I remember playing those games and having a blast. I immersed myself in it all the time. And it just brought back some really fun memories for me of my time playing video games in middle school, so bravo, Ernest Cline. I think you tapped into that pretty good. As the book progressed, I found myself enjoying it a little bit more and more, seeing him in the Oasis doing all these things for the egg hunt. I did enjoy it as it progressed, and I feel like the writing maybe got just a little bit better as it went on, with a few times where I just rolled my eyes at it, but at that point, I was in it deep enough, I just kept going. The only part that I didn't really enjoy up to the climax would have been in between the point where Wade and Artemis have their falling out and when Wade gets the Jade Key. That part in between was just sort of, I could have done without it. He's moping about the breakup, he's trying to get Artemis back, and then you learn more about his setup in his new apartment and the awful shower that dissolves all of his hair. Ugh. That was an image I really did not need. As I said earlier, I think Wade is really OP in the book. Not only does he have everything in the 80s pop culture memorized, not only is he a good student, but he also is really good with tech and hacking. And when he gets captured by the enemy, close to the end of the book, there really isn't any sense of danger because he is able to just hack his way through everything and mess with all this tech. And part of me wonders, where did you get all these skills? Maybe it's from all of his time in the Oasis and tech and using technology there. Maybe it was something that he learned while he was in the Oasis, like he took some classes or something. I don't know, but he's really good with tech as well. And he's able to set up this elaborate plan to get ready for the climax of the book. And I just didn't feel like there was really any danger. There was even one point that kind of contradicts itself in the book. Wade says that if his plan had failed, he would have been, or if this one part of his plan had failed, he would be stuck as this servant for IOI for the rest of his life. But then, later in the book it says, oh, well, good thing I had this money set up later, so I was going to be free in a few days anyways. And so it's like, well, so if this one part of your plan had failed, you still would have gotten out anyway, so why are you saying, oh, I'll be stuck here forever? It just, I had to stop and go back and relook at that. I was like, is that what I really said? But, And now we get to my favorite part in the book, which would be the climax. I think Ernest Cline did a pretty good job at building up this big fight between the Gunters and IOI. You've got, this massive group of people coming together for a cause to keep the villains out from winning Halliday's big fortune and taking over the Oasis. And then you've got these massive robots, clashing together. One of the characters says, you guys go on ahead, this one's mine. And, epicness ensues. And then Wade does something incredibly stupid and decides that he needs to humiliate the villain of the book, which, in a way, I guess it's another wish fulfillment thing, trying to satisfy everybody by, taking down the villain himself, which he does, but he gets called out on it later by his friends. They're like, guys, that was really selfish. You should not have done that. And yeah, he probably shouldn't have, considering what the stakes were at that point. He could have just left the guy alone and nothing bad would have happened. But no, he had to publicly humiliate the big bad villain. And so then we get into the final challenge of the Crystal Key and Gate. So we're at the final challenge. He's beaten one of them, and so they're like, alright, get ready for the next round. And finally, the one reference out of the entire book that I actually got, which was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Which I think most people probably would have understood. Most likely at this point, it's pretty well known. And I enjoyed that part, I'm not gonna lie. Being able to actually understand one of the references was kind of refreshing. At the same time, I was wondering, this is the final challenge to the Big Fortune. Why is it Monty Python? That would be, I would think, somewhat easier. I mean, I don't have the whole movie memorized, and I wouldn't be able to act it out like that, but I would have a better shot of doing Monty Python than, say, War Games. It just felt more like a time where the reader could just take a deep breath after all that action and suspense and just have a good laugh, I guess. At the same time, there's really no stakes at this point, because he's like, oh, well, I know this movie by heart, and he's going along and he's laughing, his friends are laughing, and it's like, okay, if you screw up, you're, gonna be set back, but at the same time, there really is no threat of him messing up. He knows the movie so well. And so then we get to the end. So we're at the end of the book. I put it down, and my first thought was, what did any of us actually learn from this? The only lesson I could take away was that those who obsess over certain things will be rewarded. Halliday tries to throw in this lesson at the last minute of, maybe don't do what I did, focus on your world and don't spend as much time in video games. You've got a life to live, which really contradicts everything that Halliday did with his Easter egg hunt. You've got these people who, as soon as Halliday dies, they are consuming this 80s culture to the point where they are obsessed over it. They are trying to master these video games. They are memorizing all these films and books and record albums, which takes a lot of time, and people at this point are not invested in reality. They are more invested in the 80s and the nostalgia that Halliday had. So it feels like that lesson just doesn't hold any weight to it, because Halliday didn't exactly do anything to enforce his message about not being invested in video games as much as reality. It just doesn't work. The book just rewards those who were obsessed over, somebody else and their life and their, obsessions. I just don't see anything in this book other than it just being wish fulfillment. It's not trying to teach anything. So, if you have any thoughts on it that I didn't bring up, I'd love to hear about it. Like I said, a lot of people I know are not, huge fans of this book that I saw anyways. And they had some really valid points, so I just like to hear outsiders' opinions on it. At this point, I am now reading something very fun. It is La Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory, and Keith Baines is the one who interprets it. And it's really unintentionally funny, I think, just some of the stuff that goes on. It's really enjoyable to see like some of the older tales of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. So I guess that's all I've got. Thank you for watching, and until next time.